Everyone. We have just about 10 seconds left. Welcome, welcome. We're so excited to have you here for our Monday edition of our Next Gen Nurses free webinar series. My name is Jennifer Bonner. I am a certified nurse midwife with over 15 years of nursing experience, and I am so excited to have you here. So, regardless of how long you've been in nursing school or how long you've been a nurse, you're going to find that navigating those legal and ethical concepts is not something that goes away once we make it through that area in our nursing program. It's something that we're dealing with, whether you are a UAP, maybe you are an LPN, an RN, maybe you're even going back to get your advanced practice license. This is something that follows us through the lifespan of the nurse. So, the first thing I want to know is, where are you in your nursing journey? So let me know. Are you in nursing school? Are you getting ready to take your NCLEX? Are you already a nurse? If you're joining us on TikTok or YouTube or Instagram, please go ahead, share with your friends. Let me know, where are you at in your nursing journey? Okay, getting ready to take the NCLEX, just graduated. Okay. Preparing for the NCLEX, LPN, just finished my RN. Congrats. In nursing school. Awesome. So wherever you are, this is something that is going to apply to you. And so my hope is that over the next little bit, we are able to kind of talk through some of these difficult concepts and break them down just a little bit. Now, just a few housekeeping things for during our time together. You're going to notice that if you are joining me on Zoom, you have a Q&A box and you have a chat box. Now, the chat box is there if you're just answering my questions. If you just have a random thought that you'd like to share with us, we love to see those. So go ahead and put those in the chat box. If you have a question, I'm going to try to get through as many of those as I possibly can. Please keep them relevant to the content that we're talking about. And like I said, I will try to get to as many as I can. There are several hundred of you joining me, which is great. And so I will see those as we go. But if you have a question that you need answered, please go ahead and put that in the Q&A. All right. Well, you know that if you have joined us before, so here at Archer Review, 3 times a week, we like to go live to talk about just general information. What are some things that can help you along your nursing journey? And so this week is navigating those legal and ethical principles, and we're going to be using something we call Slido. And if you've joined us with Slido before, you can use your smart device and go ahead and scan that QR code there on your screen, or you can just go ahead and log into slido.com and enter in the code capital A, capital R, legal, and that will get you in. And tell me, where are you joining me from? So I am in sunny and hot South Dakota. I love looking out the window this time of year. It's absolutely gorgeous, but I am very thankful for the AC. All right, so we got Texas, Cali. And remember, if you're answering my questions, please make sure those go into the chat box for me so we can leave that Q&A open for questions. Kansas, Philippines, New Jersey, Texas, Hawaii, Oregon, Chicago, Alberta, California, Nepal, Connecticut, San Francisco, Ghana, Miami, Columbia, San Jose, South Carolina, Chicago, Michigan, North Carolina, awesome. Ohio, welcome. Wherever you are in the world, I'm so excited that you're joining me. So if you popped on late, my name is Jennifer Bonner. I serve as the tutor team lead here at Archer Review. I have over 15 years of nursing experience. I've worked in the ICUs. I've worked in endoscopy. I have worked in labor and delivery, postpartum NICU, and all of those areas have had some issue where we've had to navigate those legal and ethical concepts. So this is a subject that is incredibly important in our career as nurses. And so we are going to go through those as we move through those difficult concepts. We're going to kind of break them down, talk about how we might see those used. What are those key things that you need to know? So let's go ahead and answer my first question for you. So tell me, why is it important for us to understand those legal and ethical principles? Why is it important to have those legal and ethical principles? Julie just popped on to say she passed her NCLEX in 85 questions. Congratulations. We are incredibly excited for you. Thank you for letting us know. Okay, why is it important for us to understand? Give fair and correct treatment, protecting our patients, safety. Absolutely, yes. Advocate. Yes, advocating for our patients. You got it. Ensure we're operating correctly. What can protect us? So not only our clients, but also us, protecting our patients' rights. Absolutely. All of those things are reasons why we need to understand those ethical principles. Now, many of us have worked really, really hard for our license, right? And we're not ready to give it up just so quickly. So it's really important that we understand these concepts and we understand them and we practice them. Now, there are lots of terms that we are going to go through. So we're going to start where all good things start from the very beginning with that terminology. So the first principle that we're going to talk about is justice, but there's a good bit of terminology that you're going to be expected to know for the NCLEX. So if you're someone who really struggles with memorization, one of my favorite ways to work on this is to create flashcards. Just make some, just you can make them out of paper. You can go buy the little note cards at the store, whatever works for you, and make note cards for these major terms and see if you can match them up. Now, anybody out there with elderly parents in their home, or maybe you have children at home that you're really struggling with. I really need to study, but I also really want to spend some time with my kids. Anybody in that boat? And so if that is you, yes, this is a really great way to include those. So if you're anything like me, when I was in midwifery school, I was really having some mom guilt about I really need to study, but I really need to spend time with my kids. This is a great way because they find it like a game. And so you can give them the flashcards and pretend that they are the professor. Hey, why don't you see if mom or dad or grandma or whoever got these right? I'm going to try to put them in order. You make sure I get them right. And so this is a really great game to play with them. It helps them feel um, part of that journey, helps them, helps us to feel connected to. Faranza said, sitting with my 1-year-old now while participating. Yes, it's all a part of that balancing act. So this is something that might work for you. So let's start with justice. Now, justice is essentially we're asking, is it fair? Are we distributing that care evenly? Are we administering care fairly? That's the question that we're asking when it comes to justice. So, an example of this would be making that impartial medical decisions, being fair when we're distributing care. So, among our clients in a group that we're taking care of, care has to be fair, it has to be just, and equitably distributed among that group of clients. So that is justice. Is it fair? Now, beneficence, on the other hand, this is often confused with non-maleficence. They sound very similar, but we're going to talk about non-maleficence here in just a minute, but beneficence is doing good. Are we doing the right thing for our client? So a nurse demonstrating this ethical principle could be them just holding the hand of a dying client, being there to support them. We're doing good. Now, I said sometimes we get this confused with non-maleficence. Now, non-maleficence is doing no harm. Now we see this word starts with non, right? And that usually goes hand in hand with the word not, non and not. We're not doing harm. So an example of a nurse demonstrating this one would be just avoiding negligent care of a client. So we know that negligence is not the right thing. So we are not being negligent when it comes to non-maleficence. So those are our major terms there. So restraining a client would come under non-maleficence. So it it could it would just depend on that's more of a safety issue. We are not intentionally trying to harm someone. So that could protect you as a nurse. That's a good question. All right. So how would we go ahead and put this into action? So let's see if we can answer a question together. So if you haven't already, go ahead and join me in Slido and let me know which ethical principle is accurately paired with the way that that ethical principle is applied to the nursing practice. Is it beneficence, justice, veracity, or fidelity? Now, someone is asking if we will give out the slides for this webinar. We do not, but it is recorded and it's available on our Facebook page and our YouTube channel as well. Great question. Just a few minutes to answer that one. So someone was asking earlier about the difference between non-maleficence and beneficence. So a lot of times these two principles are actually going to come together. So if we have a client that they need surgery, surgery could harm them, right? Oh, sorry, there's a fly in here. Um, but it could also save their life. So the provider has to kind of balance both delivering ethical and effective care in that situation. All right, let's see how we did here. Many of you said justice. Okay. So justice is the obligation to be fair, equally dividing time and other resources among a group of clients. Let's see, are we correct? No. So veracity is actually fully answering that client's questions without holding back any information. So let's talk about this one for just a moment. So when it comes to, well, first of all, let's talk about beneficence. So beneficence is doing good and right for the clients. Non-maleficence is doing no harm. Okay. So justice is fairness, right? Nurses, we have to be fair when we're distributing care, when we're distributing resources, but it's not always equal among that group of clients. Now, it needs those resources need to be equitably distributed, but it's not always equal among a certain group. Okay. And then fidelity is that duty to keep our promises. Now, fully answering our clients' questions without withholding information is a good example of applying veracity into the nursing process. Into our nursing practice. Now, veracity is being completely truthful with our clients. We don't want to withhold the whole truth from our clients. Give them just a little bit, but not everything. No, that's not what we do here. Even when it could lead our client into distress, we want to make sure that we are fully answering their questions. We're giving them all the information that they need. All right, let's look at our next question. The nurse is in an elevator and observes two staff members discussing a client's condition. The nurse understands that this conversation might potentially violate which ethical principle? Beneficence, confidentiality, autonomy, or veracity? What do you think? I think you guys are going to get this one. Think you guys are going to get this one. All right, let's see how we did here in 3, 2, 1. Confidentiality, 94% of you were correct. So when it comes to confidentiality, we want to make sure that we understand what is required. So we want to make sure that we are answering questions, but we want to make sure that we are not giving information to other people that should not have that information. So if they are in an elevator together, then if that other nurse does not need access to that information, then they are violating a certain law. Can you remember which law that is? Somebody let me know in the chat. Which law are they violating? You got it. It's HIPAA. Very good. All right. So I want to take a moment to just talk to you about one of my absolute favorite things that we have here at Archer Review. It's our SurePass program. This is my number one recommended package for those who are getting ready to study for the NCLEX. And let me tell you why. Because it has everything you're going to need to study. It has our Q bank, it has our on-demand videos to break down those difficult concepts, but it also has access to my favorite 3 days of the month, and that's our 3-day live review. Now, the 3-day live review is just like it says, 3 days where we are live on Zoom going through those most high yield NCLEX topics that you're most likely to see when it comes to NCLEX time. We're going to talk about what are you most likely to need to know and breaking down those difficult concepts. We go from everything from foundations all the way to specialties. It's an action-packed 3 days. You don't want to miss it. So if you're interested, go ahead, check out what the hype's all about. If you're an RN, go ahead and scan that QR code on there on the left. PNs, go ahead and scan on the right, and you will see everything that we have coming up for our next 3-day live, which will be the first full week in July. All right, so let's jump back in. So accountability. Accountability is our next term that we're going to talk about. This one shouldn't be new to us, but accountability is taking responsibility for our actions, for the care that we're providing, the medications that we're giving, those types of things. Now, occasionally, sometimes things go wrong, right? And in that situation, accountability is accepting those consequences and taking responsibility. It's not trying to shirk responsibility or to put it on someone else. So it's accepting whatever those consequences might be and owning up to our mistakes. Now, part of learning is making mistakes, right? We just hope that they are not detrimental. So an example of this one would be not blaming someone else if we make a mistake. So when I was a brand new nurse, I was working in a stroke ICU. It was brand new to the facility I was working in, and there was a lot of new graduates. So they had opened a new floor. So a lot of the new hires that they made were new grad nurses, which was great for me. Well, one night we were getting ready to admit a new client, and I was helping my teammate get everything ready. The client comes in, she's gotten them all settled, and she's ready to start working on that list of orders that comes with a new admission, right? Well, one of those orders was for an NG tube. So my friend went ahead, dropped that NG tube, and went ahead and started the tube feedings. Okay, what was wrong with that situation? Yeah, she hadn't verified it. So before she should have started her tube feeding, she should have made sure to verify with what? What type of verification would we want? Chest X-ray, you got it. That's our gold standard for verifying a NG tube. You got it. Like you would imagine, that NG tube actually went down into our client's lungs. And so what do you think happened to that client? What do you think happened? If you just had to guess, it's down in, yep, aspiration. You got it, which led to pneumonia. It was a really poor outcome. So part of accountability was her saying, yep, I messed up. Yep, I should have gotten that chest x-ray before I started those tube feedings. So that is an example of accountability, accepting the consequences for our actions. And in that case, I honestly don't know what the consequences were. Maybe a probation period. Like I said, she was a brand new nurse, so I'm sure there was an action plan that came, but she was willing to say, yep, I messed up and I'm going to take I'm going to take responsibility for those actions. Nice job. So fidelity is our next one. Fidelity is being faithful. It's keeping our promises, even in the responsibilities. So an example of fidelity would be a client requests that a nurse not let their loved ones know about their terminal diagnosis. Now, when we're practicing fidelity, the nurse is not going to disclose that information without our client's permission. So when our client's family comes in, they're like, oh, how's he doing? What's going on? If we do not have permission to share that information, fidelity says that we're going to be faithful to that. We're not going to disclose that information if our client has not given permission to do so. Now, what about autonomy? Now, many times we think of this from like a client perspective, right? Client autonomy. Absolutely. But autonomy from our nursing perspective is accepting the client as a unique person who has the right to their own opinions, their own values, and their own beliefs. And that makes in with autonomy, that means that we're not going to pressure them to make a decision that we would if we were in their situation. We're not going to judge them for their decision. We're not going to coerce them to make a different decision just because we would. This also means that our client has the right to refuse any and all treatment. So, for example, a nurse demonstrating this would be obtaining informed consent from a client for treatment, accepting the situation when that client says, you know what, I'm not going to take that medication. I don't want to. I don't like the way it feels, even though we know that it could be life-saving. A common one to come up on the NCLEX is a client who's a practicing Jehovah's Witness and they need a blood transfusion, right? Do they have the right to refuse? Absolutely. They absolutely have the right to refuse. It's their religious belief. So we're not going to judge. We're not going to try to get them to make a different decision just because we would do something different. Now, the other day I was watching reruns of one of my favorite medical TV shows where there was a practicing Jehovah's Witness who had refused blood products, and the doctor or the nurse in this situation was trying to coerce the parents. Listen, don't you understand that this is going to save her life if we do this? Autonomy says our client has the right to make their own decisions, and we are not going to coerce them. We're not going to try to make them feel bad because we think that they should do something different. All right, so the last of the ethical principles that we're going to discuss is veracity. Now, when I think of veracity, I'm thinking truthful. Okay. Veracity, I think truthful. We're telling the truth. But what if we don't give the full truth, right? So, I was talking to one of my littles earlier, and they were telling me that they were afraid of a spider that was in the room. And I was like, well, I killed a spider, but I didn't kill that spider. So, not fulfilling the whole truth. So, when I was little, I brought a jacket to school. I didn't want to wear it out to recess. I didn't really love how it looked. It wasn't my favorite. And so I just left it in my locker. It was a little bit of a chilly day. Now, my teacher asked me, Jennifer, where's your coat? And so I looked at her right in the face and I said, I didn't bring a coat. Well, she said, well, let's just go to your locker and let's check. So she opens up my locker, which I wasn't expecting. And guess what she found there? She found my jacket. And so she asked me, she said, Jennifer, what's this? And my response was, well, that's not a coat. That's actually a jacket. So I omitted part of the truth, and omitting part of the truth actually made it a lie. So we don't get to decide what our client learns about their diagnosis. It's their right to know. And this is even if we think that that news might upset them. Now, there have been a few times in practice when I've had to give a client less than ideal news. When I was working in the OBGYN clinic, I had to talk to a patient and let them know that we found cancer. And most people don't want that type of news, but it is their right to know. I don't get to decide which parts that they know. I don't get to decide those types of things. Now, I realize my client might not take that news of cancer so well, so I won't tell her that it's terminal. Now, practicing veracity, I tell her the full truth. I let her know, hey, this is terminal cancer. Now, another example that I've seen quite a bit, especially in that world of pediatrics, is telling a kiddo, don't worry, this isn't gonna hurt, especially when we're giving them a shot, right? And we know that I mean, it may not hurt a ton, but we know that it's probably gonna sting for a minute. So we don't want them to be scared, but when we tell them this isn't gonna hurt, that goes against this ethical principle of veracity. Okay. Now, here's another one, lying for the sake of convenience. Have you ever told a client that something isn't possible, or maybe it has to be done earlier than usual? Like maybe we go in and we wake them up in the early hours of the morning so that we can get through our work sooner, or because we're too busy. Well, maybe in that last part of the shift, you're trying to leave, a client asks for an extra pillow, and you're just all done with your night, and you tell them, sorry, we're out of pillows. It doesn't sound like a big deal, does it? Right? It's just, okay, we're out of pillows. But it goes against this ethical principle of veracity. Now, these are concepts that are important to understand, but it's also important that we understand how to apply them on the NCLEX. So just like we were talking about earlier, looking at how we apply these types of things is going to be really helpful. So let's look at one more question during our time together. We have a nurse that attended a staff education program about sources of negligent lawsuits. It would indicate effective understanding if the nurse identifies which of the following. What do you think? Whoops. Sorry about that. There we go. So someone asked a really good question. If a patient wants a copy of their medical record, what should the nurse do? I know they have the right, but can a nurse just give it to them, or isn't there a process? Yes, there absolutely is a process. They usually have to go through medical records in order to get that. Now, someone is asking, is it the nurse's scope of practice to reveal new diagnoses? No, but as a certified nurse midwife, that was a part of my nursing scope, or my scope of practice at the time. Good question. All right, let's see how we did here. Many of you said 84% said the nurse does not notify the physician. You are absolutely right. So when we are talking about negligence, effective understanding would be if we're not notifying the physician of a critical lab result. So we know that when we get that lab result that's critical from the lab, we need to notify someone. So absolutely right. So what do we think about treating their spouse with prescribed medications? That's not being negligent. The nurse taking pictures of a client's medical record and distributing them. Ooh, what is that? That's not negligence. That is what? What is that? It is a big old HIPAA violation. You got it. Nice work. All right. So let me tell you about just a few more things before we're finished here. So here at Archer Review, we are dedicated to your success. And we know that there are still a few things that can be a little bit tricky. And sometimes you just need someone to do a deep dive and explain, hey, here's how you can grow. So let me tell you about private tutoring. We also have small group tutoring, but private tutoring, we have an hour session for $75, or we've just recently rolled out 30-minute sessions that are $40. And so you're able to have that time with our private tutor. You can tell them, hey, I need to go to over cardiac or maternal health, or you can just say, look, I'm lost. Can you help me? And we can absolutely do that. We are here for you. We are cheering for your success. So go ahead, scan that QR code and see what our availability is. We cannot wait to work with you. Now, also, if you are getting ready to go into nursing school, several of you said you are in nursing school, and many of you are getting ready for the NCLEX. I don't know. Maybe some of you are thinking about later on down the road becoming an APRN. We have space for you here at Archer Review. We are building a community of mentors. We are building a community of support for you as you journey through this nursing life. We want you to find your support here. And so whether you're preparing for the T's, you're in the middle of nursing school, you're getting ready to take the NCLEX or your APRN boards, we have the ability to support you and encourage you along the way. So please go ahead and scan those QR codes, check out what the hype is all about. I am so delighted that you joined me today. Thank you so much for being a part of the Archer Review family. We are more than just test prep. We are dedicated to your success. I just recently got an email this morning saying, Jennifer, hey, I'm struggling. Can you help me? Or Jennifer, I just passed my boards. And we celebrate each and every one of those. So keep sending them. Keep going, keep pursuing your dreams, and we are here to walk alongside you. Thank you guys so much for joining me, and I can't wait to see you next week for our next edition of the Next Gen Nurses free webinar series.